Hello and welcome. Music provided by the Riker Initiative. There will be a link down below to his channel. He's amazing. And also a link to the patch notes because they're quite hefty. Let's get right into it and see what they've done this time. So there's an update and it's available for download on all platforms. The file size is roughly 4-ish gigabytes on PS4, but of course the size may vary depending on the platform. It's been plagued by a lot of small bugs since release, so it's no surprise that today's update contains tons of improvements and bug fixes. Content, graphics performance mode introduction. Added an option to the game that allows players to choose between performance or visual quality. Feature breakdown. This option is available on Series X, S, and PlayStation 5. That is huge. Choosing performance allows the game to adapt the resolution and graphics setting to maintain 60 FPS. Choosing quality enables the game to run maximum resolution and graphics settings while maintaining 30 FPS. Default values since the launch of the game are as follows. Series X, PlayStation 5 have been on performance, and Series S on quality. Miscellaneous. Added a new background image to the title screen, various VFX to enhance visuals. Added an option that automatically assign all nodes on the path when acquiring a central skill. Added rune categories to the rune menu. All runes are now categorized in weapon and armor runes. Hallelujah. Added a warning when switching from a language that supports TTS to one that does not. Sliders can now be moved with left and right arrows on M and K and controllers. Increased fabric limit to 82. Added fabric to traders once the settlement has reached level 6. Added offering altar requirements to the world map. Balancing. Updated gear quality and gear to their correct values. Added assassination damage stats on the character stats page. Removed duplicate gear from inventory. Thank God. Heavy and light attack stats will now adjust correctly based on the acquired skill nodes. Heavy attack modifiers will no longer be applied to range attacks. Game improvements, performance and stability. Improved the stability and performance. On the Series Xbox, we've improved the experience on the Series S and X consoles, including screen tearing. PC. Addressed a VRAM/RAM leakage issue when alt-tabbing to the desktop. Save games. Corrected some instances where load games would not display the save game correctly. Renamed the cloud saves to make them more distinguishable from the regular saves, because, you know, that big cloud icon on there wasn't obvious enough. Previously, the cloud save was only highlighted with a cloud icon. Now they'll be called, for example, manual save cloud. Okay. Removed cloud saves from the save menu. This will ensure that it cannot be overwritten unintentionally. Sure. Added a notification when a cloud save retrieval has failed. Graphics, audio, and animation. Addressed various graphical issues across the board, various effects issues, various instances of clipping issues, visual issues with Eivor's cloak, or instances of player or NPC animation issues, various audio issues, lighting issues, shadow resolution on high will now use correct values. So they just fixed a lot of issues. The world. There's a lot of problems with the world that needs fixing. Addressed various texture or object placement issues. Addressed some instances where the player could become stuck in a specific location. I've had that happen quite a few times. Fish in Norway will now spawn in bad weather. Yeah, we had to read this twice too. Yeah, because, you know, the weather's ever nice there. Crows will no longer randomly fall from the sky in Asgard. Bad omens, huh? Gameplay, combat, and AI. Addressed various bow aiming issues, improved NPC and boss behavior across the board. NPCs will now react to the player stealing, so think twice before stealing. Addressed an issue where dogs would start levitating when Eivor starts to pet them. They felt euphoric. Blocking Springall projectiles will now consume stamina as intended. Zealots. I like calling them zealots. That were hit with a sleep dart can now be stun attacked. Sleep tight. Zealots will no longer heal themselves while in the player vicinity. Guards who clearly saw Eivor shoot their ally will now turn hostile. Press the emergency button. Guards will now hear the impact of dead bodies dropping to the ground. Improved guard reactions to whistling. Improved disguise behavior in distress zones. Shooting bows from the longship now consumes arrows. I just hope they have it so that when you're in a distress zone, it doesn't just automatically put your cloak on and then removes the fact that you wanted to hide your cloak potentially, because that was really effing annoying. Players will now be able to air assassinate sleeping NPCs. Improved fish reeling behavior. Addressed an issue where the horse wouldn't use the gallop animation correctly in combat. The crowd will now cheer during drinking games. Reworked the sliding mechanic. Quests, world events, and side activities. Addressed an issue where the assassination sequence wouldn't play for some targets, or various texture issues during cutscenes, or various issues with quests or world events that prevented players from completing them. I've had that shit happen. Players can no longer use the fishing tool or the horn during the drunk walk with Tudor. You're drunk, go home. Subquests will now display the correct part of parent quest. The memory stream can now be chosen when starting a new game. If hold alternative option is set to on, excuse me. Increase the frequency of experienced travelers. Because I guess you would actually see them on the path, because if you're not an experienced traveler, you could get lost so you wouldn't see them. Moving on. User interface and HUD. Addressed various issues with the user interface, the HUD, localization issues, mouse and keyboard related input issues. Secrets will now be discovered when synchronizing a viewpoint. This does not apply to Pathfinder difficulty. Experienced travelers are now highlighted on the world map and on the compass when in proximity. Also addressed an issue where the map wouldn't update once players got intel from an experienced traveler. Increased out in sight radius and enemies will now be highlighted for longer. Improve radius in which Sinan reveals keys. Reduce Sinan's view distance of materials. Improve the objective beam behavior. Settlement building beams can now be seen using Odin's sight. Improved enemy target lock mechanics. Sell all trinkets will now be grayed out after all trinkets were sold. Bosses' power levels will now be displayed on their health gauge. This does not apply to regular enemies. Regular brightness settings will no longer apply to HDR exposure settings. The codex will no longer foreshadow or spoil some events. A11Y desktop entries and content on Ladle's laptop are now narrated when menu narration is on. Ali, I think that's what that's supposed to be. Colorblind filters are now applied properly to mini-quest logs and raid tutorials. Abilities and skills. Addressed an issue where players couldn't use any abilities anymore when the dive of the Valkyrie's ability was interrupted. Ally NPCs or horses can no longer trigger body traps. Some people just want to see the world burn. Addressed a display issue where the poisonous powder trap could become invisible after using Sinan. Adjusted chain and assassination behavior. Players will no longer be able to assassinate a target who was tackled to the ground. The secondary hand slot will no longer be available when a two-handed weapon is equipped pre-heavy dual-wield skill. Flaming powder traps will now explode when walking over the arrow. Raids. Force open will now be displayed correctly even if nearby allies are in combat. Addressed an issue where allies would not help Eivor to open a door during raids. Lazy prick. Allies will now return to the longship once the raid is complete and added a timer until players can restart a raid that was just completed. But does that mean that the loot is going to come back? That people can still get their raw supplies from it? I don't know. Photo mode effect. Values can now be adjusted with the arrows, keys, or WASD. No filter option will now work correctly. Territory panel is no longer displayed in photo mode. Changing filters will now work as intended. Addressed an issue where an online service error could occur temporarily when looking at photos of the world map. Snow effects will now center to the camera instead of the player in photo mode. And finally, system. PC updated README files to show the correct PC specs, added additional checkpoints to some boss fights, addressed an issue that led controllers to vibrate constantly. Perverts. Addressed an issue where players could become stuck in a black screen after closing the menu with start. PC updated the auto-detect config for NVIDIA GeForce 1650S. That is it for me. That was some big-ass patch notes. As always, if you liked what you saw, give it a thumbs up. It helps promote the channel with the algorithm and all that googly-guck. You didn't like the video, go ahead, give it a thumbs down, and I'll make sure when you play the game after the update, your settlement is back at 1. You've lost all your books of knowledge, you lost everything, your memory, gone. It's been wiped. You gotta start from scratch. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, naturally that would be great, but if not, thanks for stopping by anyways. Take care, boys and girls, or whatever it is you identify as, and hopefully I'll see at least some of you in the next video. Bye for now.